of folks who are on the call. And if you can hear me, this is Sujatha Jesudason, Director of CoreAlign. If you can hear me, if you can just chat either a smiley face in the main chat box or the location where you're at, that would be great, just so that we know that folks can hear us. So, it's lovely. And we also get to see, can't hear well, so is it the audio on the phone that's not working well or through the webinar? And maybe Sarah can chat some instructions. So just so folks know, I'm on the call, as are Elizabeth Dawes-Gay, who was part of our first cohort, and Indra Lusero, who is part of our second cohort. And then we also have Sarah Magnuson on the call, and she's going to be tracking the what you all say in the chat box, so, and helping us kind of triage the questions. So I'm going to put my headset on and see if that helps with the volume.
And see if that makes it better. So essentially what we're going to do on this call is I'll do a really brief presentation of the Generative Fellowship. Elizabeth and Indra are going to share some of their experiences. And really the goal of this webinar is for you all to ask any and all questions that you have about both the fellowship and the application process. So please chat your questions as we go through. Sarah's going to be helping with the triaging of the questions. She might chat some of the answers back to folks, but just please use this as an opportunity to get any questions or just even ideas that you have answered, so that you can have a sense of confidence both about whether this fellowship is the right thing for you, and then that you have all the information you need for the for your application process. So before we get started, Elizabeth, you want to just say hello?
Hi, everybody.
So that's Elizabeth Dawes-Gay. And then Indra, you want to?
Hello.
All right. So now you know what we all look like. And also totally feel free to direct any questions to any of us in the chat box. So I'm going to start moving the slides presentation forward. So many of you may have already heard about CoreAlign, but if you haven't, one, I encourage you to go to CoreAlign.org, but essentially CoreAlign is a movement building initiative, and we really designed this program. We've only been around for about 2.5 years, and it is really a program that's an organization and a program that's designed to be in service to the broader movement for reproductive health, rights, and justice. And our goal is to expand the capacity, reach, coordination, and impact of the movement. Our primary goals are we work to foster a culture of collaboration and innovation in the movement, and all of this, our vision is in service of winning resources, rights, and respect for all people's sexual and reproductive lives. We have several different programs that include sort of introductory events, network and mapping, breakthrough conversations, the fellowship, and then all of this culminating and feeding into a kind of expansive project that we're doing around bringing people together to develop a 30-year vision and strategy for the movement, so that we can all, in a sense, build some alignment as we move forward. The genesis for CoreAlign, and in particular the fellowship, is CoreAlign was really started back in 2011, and that was the year when we really started seeing an avalanche of anti-choice and anti-abortion legislation in this country. And so as you can see from this graph, between 2001 and 2010, there was a total of 189 pieces of anti-abortion legislation that was introduced and passed, but just between 2011 and 2013, we've doubled almost, well, not quite double the number, but you can see sort of the rapid increase. And so one of the big realizations for our movement was that we really needed to do things differently. Like, our old strategies had been successful for a while, but we really needed a whole new set of strategies and concepts and paradigms and projects to get us to break through this kind of gridlock and the momentum that the anti-choice folks were having. And so the fellowship really is designed for people who are interested in doing different things and doing them differently, with the idea of creating new and innovative programs, events, campaigns, ways of thinking, concepts, toolkits. It's whatever kind of array of things people can think about, but both in service of the movement and really to help us think about ways for us to be innovative in order to win resources, rights, and respect for the whole movement. So in terms of what we think about as innovation, and I got to say, before we started doing this work, I had a very kind of old-fashioned notion of innovation, which was I thought innovation was like it was an idea or it was technology, and this particularly coming from Silicon Valley. But really what we have come to find, and both Elizabeth and Indra will speak to this, that innovation really is a process. It is a very systematic and rigorous way of doing both inquiry and coming up with new tested ways of addressing problems. And so it's not about anyone having like some great idea, a single idea, but it's to take that idea through a rigorous process. And a big part of what we teach in the fellowship is that rigorous process. And ultimately, it is about how to innovate is to do something in a non-habitual way. And when I think about non-habitual, it's a really tricky thing because most of our habits, and that's why they're habits, is because we just do them automatically and we're not that aware that we do them automatically. So when you think about at a movement level, what are the strategies or what are the campaigns or what are the policy ideas that we have that we sort of presume are like this is the way we've always done it, this is the way we should continue to do it. Really, to do innovation is to question all of those assumptions and think about what is a new way of doing it, what is a different way of doing it, what is a way to kind of renew and refresh what we have been doing so that we're really thinking outside the box, not an idea outside of the box, but really thinking outside of the box. And then finally, in terms of this program in particular, what we at CoreAlign see ourselves as doing is really investing in innovators and building a culture of innovation in our movement. So while fellows apply with a specific project idea, the goal isn't necessarily always to achieve the idea. It is to go through the process and learn the skills of innovation. And for some people, their projects might be in very early phases, and in 6 months you can only take it so far. But for other folks, it really is about, like, how can I be rigorous about developing this idea? So that's what we think about in terms of innovation. And so for CoreAlign, the goals for the movement in terms of innovation is to create a network of innovative leaders. And so you can see here, this is our first 2 cohorts together. The first cohort is called Flames, and the second cohort is called Sparks. And you can see both Indra and Elizabeth are in there. But it's about creating a network of innovative leaders who share a language around innovation and understand the process of innovation, and it's to support and nurture innovation. So to the extent that we can be the network of leaders, the network of fellows is supporting each other's ideas, and also for CoreAlign to be supporting ideas. But ultimately it's about developing a culture of innovation in the movement. Let me go down to the next slide. So the goals of the fellowship is to increase leaders and fellows' ability to think outside the box. And once again, the emphasis is on the process of thinking. So it's not just the idea, but it's the rigorous cultivation of those ideas to develop that shared language and culture of innovation, and then to support the development of, when we think about innovation at a movement level, we're thinking about new strategies, tactics, programs, and concepts. And you'll hear from both Elizabeth and Indra like what a diversity of ideas might look like. So that's the description of the fellowship, and now I'm going to kind of go into the application process and the requirements. So our first set of requirements are really broad, and it's really about people being people who see themselves and understand themselves and really enter in the world as curious and generous, and particularly generous in terms of not feeling kind of attached to their ideas or sort of proprietary around their ideas, but also generative in the sense of problem solving. So spending less time identifying problems and deconstructing them and more time like, okay, if this is a problem, what can be different kinds of solutions? And ultimately, innovation really requires people to lean into risk and discomfort, and you'll hear more about the risk and discomfort if you are a fellow, particularly in terms of really being willing to question your assumptions, and then take, sort of kind of go out on a limb and say, this is a possible solution that I think that I want to test out, and that, it actually will feel risky. And then the last requirement, and this is very specific to the application process, an idea or inquiry ready for exploration, development, testing, or prototyping that would be of service to the movement. So it doesn't have to be a fully formed idea. It can be sort of you're developing the early concept of an idea, or it can be an idea that you've actually been working on for a while that you want to push forward more. Some of the tools that we use, and some people might have heard about this stuff before, design thinking. This is a methodology that we have borrowed from Silicon Valley that we've modified for social change and movement building context, and people have really found this to be really very helpful. But this is essentially the rigorous process that people take their ideas through in terms of being very clear about whose behavior or ideas or understandings they're seeking to change, how do they define the problem, thinking about multiple different ideas, ideating, so instead of just thinking about one solution, what are 10 solutions that we can think about, and then prototyping and implementing in terms of really testing out ideas as soon as we develop them so that we can start getting a lot of data and feedback in terms of the practicality or the resonance of those ideas. And a big part of all of this is feedback, feedback, feedback. So we're really looking for feedback at all stages. And we think about design thinking as both having a research component to it, so really sort of testing ideas, researching ideas, but resilience in the sense of really being able to bounce back, getting information that might not be what you had hoped for, and then being able to bounce back in terms of both applying that and not losing your core purpose. And then a core component of all of this is really the relating and the networking. And both Elizabeth and Indra will speak to this in terms of innovative ideas need networks of support and networks of information to make them useful. And so what is it, how can we build those networks around us as individual innovators, but also in community of innovators, but also around our ideas. So those are some of the things that we really emphasize in the fellowship. And then the other component piece to what we do in the fellowship is we use concepts from a book that's been very popular also once again in Silicon Valley. It's called The Lean Startup. And this is a book that really talks about and has some really great concepts for starting out with new ideas, particularly ideas under conditions of extreme uncertainty. So in all cases, when we start out with an innovative idea, we actually have a hypothesis. And through the fellowship, people clarify their hypothesis, but essentially the hypothesis, if I do something, then X will happen. And there's both a difference between a value hypothesis in terms of the if I do X, or if if we do the X campaign, there's value in the campaign, and but there's an additional hypothesis of and does the idea engage other people and grow? And this is critical for movement building work. The other concept that we also emphasize heavily is fast iterations and a bias to action. So the expectation is through that 6-month period, people will be doing something on their project. So it's not just spending the time just thinking about the project, but really taking a bias to action and doing some work on it. And then the last piece is the validated learning. So it's all about feedback, feedback, feedback. Excuse me. And then just the sort of nuts and bolts of the program. So it's a 6-month program, and we intentionally design it this way so to give people a chance to really get a flavor of what innovation is and the fellowship, with the hope that as the work continues that we're going to sort of build this work out, but it starts out with a 6-month fellowship. It's a 6-month program, and it starts and ends with a retreat. So the beginning of the fellowship is a 3-day retreat, September 18th to 21st. The second one, the ending retreat, is March 12th through the 15th. If you can't make those dates, just know that we are offering this fellowship every 6 months, so there will be other opportunities for folks to apply. And the other expectation in terms of commitments from fellows is that they actively participate. We do a lot of peer coaching and networking between the first and second retreat, and that they're really committed more than anything to just advancing their project as much as possible. We don't have standard of you have to get X or Y done to be successful, and that the final sort of deliverable of the fellowship is a 10-minute TED-style talk or a blog. So we've tried to make the requirements for the fellowship non-prohibitive for folks, with the expectation that people are really sort of taking initiative, and this is something that they want to do. So we're trying to be as supportive as possible and try and give some structure. The application requirements, so and all of this information is on our website, is create a profile on the CoreAlign online network, send in a current resume or CV, and that's really mostly just to get a sense of like the kinds of the breadth of the work that you have done in your activist or professional life, a story of your work on a previous project, a previous innovative project. So once again, just to get a sense of like how you work in team and how you have done some innovative work before, and then a personal statement on your current idea. So what's compelling about the idea, why you think it's important, and all of this is just, I think the story and the personal statement are really just one-page documents each. So this is not an onerous application process, and the deadline is June 15th. So on that note, I am going to transfer it to Elizabeth. And once again, I just want to encourage folks to be chatting any questions that you have. So Elizabeth, why don't you take it away from here?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Please let me know if you can't hear me. I am on the phone. I don't think I'll be able to use a headset, but if I need to speak up, I can do that. And I might glance at the phone because it's over here to my left. So I'll try to focus on you, but if I look at the phone. I'm so glad you're all on the webinar today, and I would strongly encourage you to apply to the fellowship no matter what. It was a great opportunity to really explore my idea, get support for it, and also help others in the meantime. So I think my top 4 points that I would mention about the fellowship are that it's a great way to exchange ideas with people who share a passion for reproductive health, for reproductive rights and justice, and also social justice. So not everyone's project or idea was specific to reproductive health, but in that broader sort of scope or umbrella of reproductive justice, which includes like a human rights framework, it was a great way to learn about the process of design and innovation, and to, really gain tools that can help you move forward as you're putting your idea into action. It's also a great way to build community and gain friends. Some of the people that I met in the fellowship I continue to work with to this day, and I think those will be long-lasting relationships. So it's not just a 6-month sort of thing. It's the rest of your life, or the extent to which you keep in contact with those people and continue to exchange ideas and work on things together that you may not have thought you would be working on when you applied for the fellowship. It's also, like I mentioned, a great way to help others. It's not really a self-centered sort of thing, so you come with your own idea and you definitely get feedback on that, get input, learn different tools and activities that you can use to help you as you move forward, but at the same time, it's also a community and you're helping others. And in doing so, you're also, I think, learning things for yourself that you can use for your own project. So my idea is called Black Women 4. It's actually being implemented right now. And Black Women 4 is a leadership development network that I designed to inspire, encourage, and empower the next generation of progressive Black women leaders. And we focus on empower because we want these young leaders to be prepared to create social change, create the sort of change they want to see, and achieve social justice in the world. And at the same time, we're building a community of support and a network that connects young women to each other and connects young women to more experienced women who can share wisdom, share lessons learned, and really have an open and honest dialogue about here's what it takes to succeed or to accomplish what you're seeking to accomplish. And so we do this through two main activities, first being workshops, and the second is conversation. So the workshops are where people learn how to get things done. It's where skills transfer takes place. So we've had different workshops like branding, learning how to brand yourself online and use social media to share your message or share the activism that you're trying to get out there, fundraising, how to raise money to fund your cause, and community organizing. So those are some things that we've done so far. We'll continue to do different workshops that help people build the skills they think they need or that they recognize that they need to create social change. Conversations are really a place where you can have an open and honest dialogue. Specifically for Black women, it's sometimes you have unique challenges that you face in the workplace or even in your personal life that might transfer into your professional life. And so it's really a place to have that conversation, to lay some issues on the table and to work on them, and at the same time, like I said, to learn from older women who have been there, done that, and who have some things to share about how to, navigate those tough situations. So the theory of change is sort of that when you are empowered, when you have the skills, you have the knowledge, you have a network of support, that this makes it easier for you to then go out and work on reproductive justice or implement an activity or lead an organization or navigate the American professional environment. And so ultimately you will, when you're better equipped to do that, you will achieve what you're seeking to accomplish. So that's my project, and feel free to ask me any questions about that. But the CoreAlign Fellowship specifically helped me to recognize that I was on the right track and encouraged me to try different things. So there is technically no right track, but it helped because I had started my project before I started the fellowship and without understanding the sort of design process. And I was able to see sort of like where I was in the process, through the tools that Sujatha and her team presented. And so that was definitely something that I learned and was able to utilize later on. Through the fellowship, I also learned not to take failure personally. So I think you saw on the slide labeled Goals of Fellowship, there was a picture of me and the rest of my team building like or attempting to build a structure that would support something. I won't give it all away because I know that there's sometimes a surprise, but we basically failed that assignment. It didn't go as planned, but it was a process of learning where we were thinking about, well, how can we put something or create something that will achieve a specific goal. And I think that's an example of what CoreAlign encourages us to do, is to think about how we want to achieve our goal. And at the end of the day, it's great if we can achieve it, but it's really about, okay, well, if we don't, how are we going to go back and do things differently? Or how would we think about things differently and continue to think about, new things and how we might accomplish our goal, given specific resources and using the support of a team. And I think that's really important because in my project, or in developing Black Women For and implementing it, I have experienced some failures, what I would call opportunities to learn lessons, where things didn't go quite as planned. There have been a few of those, and I've had to, sit down and rethink, like, okay, how do I want to approach this in the future, and that kind of thing. So that's been really great. And we were asked to talk about monthly meetings. So I think the monthly meetings are a great opportunity to really share your progress, take note of your progress if you've made any, where you need to step up or where things are going really well, and to support other members of your cohort. So we talked through issues, we shared our feelings. It's really about encouraging each other. People might be at different places where they need encouragement and support more than other months. Like sometimes it might be your month to get encouragement or to, share some of the tough things that you've been working on. and it's also a place to, really, talk about your strengths and your weaknesses, and how you might do things differently. One of the key things that I wanted to say was that it's okay to, recognize that we can't do everything. We need other people and we need a team. And I think the fellowship has really shown that, and also provided some of the tools necessary to think about, well, where are the networks, where are the people in my network that I can rely on, or that I can tap to get something done. And it may be someone that you're not immediately connected to. It might be, thinking about, I forgot the name of the exercise, what that's called, loose ties. So we have strong ties and loose ties. And, where you can, definitely build on the strong ties, but also use those loose connections that you have that you may not think about. And one thing that happened in the fellowship that I didn't really expect was the bonding that took place between the cohorts. So we really bonded in an interesting way. I don't think anyone at CoreAlign was expecting that either. So it was really like we were a little family of sorts. And so we, like I said, we work with each other professionally. We're friends. We keep in touch, and I think in addition to the support that you'll get for exploring your idea, going through the process of design and innovation, you'll definitely leave with friends and that people that you can connect with later on to do things in the movement. So that's what I have for right now, and I'm open to questions. Yes, I see one in the box that says, is there a website where I can learn more about your project? There is. It's called blackwoman4.org, and I'll type that into the box right now. That's the site that I use. I'm also on Twitter and on Instagram, and I hope that, thanks. Okay, great. Hope that helps.
Elizabeth, before you go, can you just say a little bit about, are there things that you learned in the fellowship that, are you applying now to the rest of your life, not just to your idea?
Yeah, so it's funny because I found something earlier today that was about being on how to receive feedback. And it's interesting because at the time of the fellowship, that was something that I was struggling with, and it was fortuitous that it was in our packet. But I think being open to feedback is tough. Like I said, failure is tough. You can take it personally, both feedback and failure. It's sort of like, does this mean I'm a bad person? Am I not doing good enough? Am I not good enough at all? That type of thing. But I think some of the training we received at the fellowship was helpful in that way. Thinking that helped me to think that, people aren't necessarily giving you criticism to attack you, but to help you improve, because they sometimes will have it's a real question about, could I be more clear here, or could I communicate better there, versus this is just a bad idea, that kind of thing. So I don't think there are any bad ideas. There are just things that can be improved upon, and there are, I don't think when people are giving you feedback, they're criticizing you. It's really about the project, or your idea, or how you can improve that idea. So I think that's helped me personally as well, because obviously criticism is just a part of life. Feedback is a part of life, and you learn how to take it in stride and learn and grow from it instead of just getting down and defeated.
Great, thank you. Indra, on my screen, your image isn't there anymore, but if you are still on the line, do you want to go ahead?
Well, I'm very sorry to hear my image isn't there. Can you hear me?
We can definitely hear you.
I dialed in via the phone because I know my video connection is a little weak. I think it's just broadband. Sorry. I'll go ahead and launch in nonetheless.
Yeah, and hopefully your image, because it was there before, so hopefully it will come back soon.
Yeah, maybe I'll come back.
Yeah.
So first of all, I want to echo what Elizabeth said. Just go ahead and apply. It's definitely worth it. I think the process of thinking through the application, thinking about times that you've engaged in innovation or developed an idea is good exercise. And certainly the program, if you're interested in innovation, this is an excellent experience and I highly recommend it. I guess I'll start talking a little bit about what my idea was, because it kind of helps me talk about what I've gotten from the fellowship so far. The idea that I'm working on is trying to build a legal network that can respond to human rights violations related to childbirth. And this is an idea that I've been working on for a long time. I actually went to law school with this idea in an early stage back in 2006. So one of the things that I most value about this experience is that understanding innovation as a process, that design thinking model. The graphic was shown earlier in the webinar, and that has been so valuable to me in helping me just understand where I've been with this idea so far. Instead of just feeling like I wasn't making any progress, I could see by using that design thinking model that, in fact, I have been making progress, and important progress at that, you know, taking time to think about who this is for, taking time to think about what your definition of the problem is, taking time to think about multiple ways of solving that problem are all really important and ongoing even parts of the process. And I've really so valued having that language because it's helped me be better able to talk about the project I'm working on and where it is and where I see it going. I can use this language of prototypes and iterations to help explain to people sort of the life course that new ideas go through and that this idea is going through as well. And then being able to share that language with the cohort has been extremely valuable as well. That piece of the puzzle, which is resilience, that ability to keep going, to bounce back, I think having a shared language and having shared concepts about what innovation takes and how it looks can really help with innovation, with resilience. It's really helped me with staying resilient. And I know that other folks in my cohort are at really different stages in developing their ideas, and I think it helps us support each other better to have this framework that we can all refer to, so that it doesn't feel as competitive, for one thing. I know some folks, folks who like to get stuff done a lot of times have ideas, and we kind of are hard on ourselves, and we want to see ourselves make progress and demonstrate effectiveness. But I think understanding innovation as a process and having, the training that this fellowship has provided me has given us another way of looking at what effectiveness looks like and what it means to be effective. And being open to feedback is one of the things that I think I see now more clearly as being an important part of being effective. Am I, being able to ask that question, hey, have I built in a way of getting feedback to this stage of my process? How can I build in a way of getting feedback to the next stage I envision? How can I make sure that feedback is always a part of what we're doing? And I think that's part of why I love this fellowship, not only for what it's providing me individually in developing this idea, but for what it provides as a movement-building resource. I really agree with the hypothesis. I think it is a great concept to say, hey, if we build a network of folks who share these tools, so if we start to have a whole crew of people who ask at every stage, am I getting feedback? Have I built in enough feedback? I think that will help us essentially advance as a movement. And maybe we will be able to not find ourselves in a situation where we're having to, be on the defensive for 200, anti-choice bills across the country. But even if we are in that position again, hopefully we will be even more resourced because we will have been getting feedback all along the way. So that's maybe an additional thing that I really value about this fellowship and this experience is that CoreAlign is a great model of innovation. They're modeling for us, for the rest of the movement, ways to step out of the box. And I really appreciate the ways that the CoreAlign team has shared their process, has been open about talking about times that they've, needed to be resilient, or times they've needed to get feedback, or, lessons learned along the way. That has been extremely valuable to me personally, and again, I think as a movement model. One of the highlights in the first retreat for me was some of the cool hands-on workshopping type activities we did. So we each got into small groups with our ideas in various stages of development, and we did these basically brainstorming activities, but one of them involved just using a random box of objects. So random: staplers, construction paper, little bouncy balls, random stuff. And the goal, the challenge was to use those objects in order to communicate or, innovate new ideas, to ideate, basically. So, we all came in with ideas, but this was an opportunity to say, hey, sure, you think you've thought this through, but I bet there are 15 other things that you never imagined possible that this little slinky toy will evoke for you. I know everyone in my group, we've all really had our minds opened by that, appreciated seeing how there were all sorts of ideas that we hadn't even thought of, all different angles. It seemed like an infinite world of possibilities existed just within this box of toys, basically. So that's the kind of thing, I think you can expect. And, of course, if you come to it with a real spirit of openness and that generosity that they talk about, you'll find that there's a lot to be gained.
Great. Indra, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Elizabeth in terms of, and I know you're only sort of halfway through the program, but things that you learned through the fellowship that are sort of you've applied to other places in your life or that have shifted things other places.
Yes, thank you actually for reminding me of that. The applications to this project were immediate, but I was surprised at how easy it was to take these lessons and apply them to everything. Most immediately, I'm working with a whole different team doing more Colorado-based reproductive justice work. And I just brought all of these tools right back to that work. And I've used the design thinking, the graphic. I've shared that with my team. We actually have a retreat coming up this weekend where we're going to go through the process. We're going to talk about the who and how we define the problem, and we're going to ideate. And that is all just thanks to CoreAlign. Somebody asked in the questions over here if they could apply as a team or just as individuals. And one of the things I found is that either way, the benefit to teams is great. I've found it quite possible to use these tools and share them with my team. I don't feel, and I don't know if it's just me, but I don't feel like I need, an advanced degree to share these tools. It feels very accessible to me and very shareable in a way that I think, folks who are working in teams, which I'm already working in teams for the Legal Network idea and my Colorado teams, and it would totally work to just say, hey, we would like our team to send you as our representative so you can go and bring back all these resources. So yes, I mean, and just personally, the resilience stuff, I can't even express all the ways this has helped me.
Thank you. Elizabeth, did you have any additional thoughts to add based on what Indra said? And also just give this as a chance for people to either start thinking about the questions you want to ask and start chatting them so that we can, all three of us can answer them. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned resilience because that's what I think that was what I was trying to express when I was talking about, failure and not really thinking of it as failure as we've sort of been taught to think about it, but really thinking about, well, what can I do differently? How can I bounce back? I think CoreAlign is really helpful for that thinking. I think a lot of the tools and activities that we go through are about bouncing back, about trying new things, trying to just keep creating and keep innovating. And I guess that leads me to the sort of second point that stands out. It's really about, creation. How can I be more creative? How can I involve others in my creative process? What can I learn from others and bring that in, or what can I share with other people, and how do I contribute to their process as well? So I think it's a great opportunity to do those things and to learn how to do them more effectively than we might do them in our lives before CoreAlign.
Great. All right. And it looks like Lisa Stern is typing a question now. Other folks certainly feel free to do that. Sarah, were there any other questions? I wasn't tracking the chat so closely, but
no, there hasn't been much.
Okay.
We have a shy or confident group.
Okay. So it's looking at Lisa's question, have there been fellows who fundamentally shifted the direction and focus of their idea during the fellowship process? How did it go? Elizabeth or Indra, do you guys want to speak to that, and then I can also add something to that? Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know there were, in my cohort, there was at least one person in my small group as well whose idea, I think, changed. And I sort of mentioned the monthly meeting process that we had. And, through that, it was a place for her to, she basically shared with us, her feelings about, abandoning a certain idea, or just, having thought about that idea more, having used some of the tools that we were provided, feeling like she should go in a different direction. And I think it's less about, her project, what it ended up being, but more about the process of that shift. So, and it being okay to learn things, to change. I think that's, definitely a part of the process. If you have a project and there's nothing different about it by the end of the fellowship, then I think you've sort of missed the main point of the fellowship, which is to be constantly thinking, rethinking, innovating, trying things out, adapting, modifying different parts of your project. So it's a safe space to, explore ideas and to say, hey, I don't really like that idea anymore, or I don't think that's necessary, or what I've learned, I'm going to go in this other direction, and that's completely okay.
Right. How about you, Indra?
Yeah, I would definitely just confirm that. Being midway through the process, I know several of my colleagues are facing a pivot. They're really wondering if they should proceed down the course that they originally envisioned, or whether they should change course altogether, whether they should, completely scrap all of it and start anew. So I can't say where they may end up, but I definitely know that many of them actually are really wondering, really redefining what they were planning on doing.
Yeah, and I'll add, part of the beauty of the process, like Elizabeth said, is that if you don't really rethink your project, then the fellowship hasn't been of service. to you is that at any one of the stages of the design thinking process, it really does make you rethink. So it could be that you had a great idea, but you were thinking about it for a very different audience than the audience that you end up with. So that once you've changed your audience, that can actually change your question or change your project. CoreAlign itself is not attached to fellows coming in and leaving with the same idea. For us, really, as it goes back to the beginning, it's about investing in innovators and really supporting innovators through their process. And so I would actually say that there have been a couple of fellows who've changed their projects a couple of times through the process. So it's really about the process of innovation and less about the specific idea, because if we get attached to the specific idea, that assumes that the idea is always the right idea and that we don't get to sort of re-question it. So, so yes, there is a lot of liberty for people to rethink their project. And let's see, there's another question. Most of the proposals have been project-based, or have there been a mix of big questions without specific projects already in mind? So I think hearing both Elizabeth and Indra, people have gotten more of a sense of people coming in with a little bit more formed ideas. I mean, we've had some of the projects where people are in the very early stages of asking very big questions. So things like, what might conversations around race look like? So that, they're very, conceptually very large without even a particular starting point to the conversation. So it has been very much of a mix. And in fact, we try to construct the cohorts with a mix of people so that people can see each other in the different phases of the process too. So so we very, very much value the, some ideas a little bit more formed, but some ideas also very much in the very initial phases. Any other questions? One thing I do want to say is that oftentimes there's a presumption that this fellowship is designed for young folks, and that is actually not true. We very much try to bring together a mix of people, both in terms of age, in terms of geography, in terms of gender identity, race. So we really, in many ways, one of the core learnings of innovation is the more diverse your network is, the stronger your idea development is, and so we very much try to live that as practice. So, we encourage people both from as diverse geographic areas from the country, racial, gender, but also age to apply. So don't anybody think that you are not the exact right person for this fellowship.
And Indra and Elizabeth, it looks like there's a question directed to both of you. So what has been the most challenging or hardest parts about the fellowship?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is before the first retreat, we read, what's that book?
Mistakes Were Made, but Not by Me.
Mistakes Were Made, but Not by Me, which, by the way, I think is a great book. And it did, for the first 5 chapters, I was like, oh my God. It's kind of like the book suggests you can't trust your own mind. And I went on a deep journey in self-questioning and doubt. If I can't trust my mind, what do I look to? How do I proceed? I'm kind of playing a little bit, but that really was. I mean, that was challenging in a good way, in an exciting, hands-on, real-life learning kind of way. I felt challenged. I felt pushed to the next level emotionally and intellectually in a way that was really optimum. And I think there's probably different pieces for different people, but that was one of the pieces for me that, so many things about my shifting sort of tipped over after reading that book and fell into place. But I had to go through and do some hard reevaluation, some sort of hard thinking and feeling work to get there.
So for me, I think the more challenging aspects of it were actually related to when we were in person in the retreat setting. still thinking on your feet. You might be asked to do that, and so that can be. I'm someone who likes to have time to like prepare and write out notes and do different things. So being thrown some of the curveballs of some of the activities in the retreat setting, were a little challenging for me, but other people might not find that as challenging. And then especially like if you're introverted, 2 days of engaging, 3 days of engaging with other people might be, might be a lot, or you sort of, are sort of like tired by the end of it because you're, constantly thinking, engaging, interacting, learning things. So it can be a challenge. Like I said, that's if you're, if you have a certain type of personality or another. But I think it's well worth the energy that that you invest in those retreat times. You get a lot out of it. So challenging, but well worth it.
All right. It looks like a couple other folks are typing questions. So as they appear, I know we're coming up on the end of our hour, so I wanted to say that Sarah will email the PowerPoint presentation to everybody who RSVP'd, so you have a copy of that. And then also you should be able to find more information about all of the individual projects that the fellows have done. And Sarah posted that by cohort. But you can get a sense of the different ideas. And then if you wanted to be in touch with any of the fellows, let us know and we will help make the connection. So let's see. Looks like Roxana is typing. Oh, here we go. Her question, in terms of sustainability of the projects, how does the fellowship promote that, if it does? So in terms of CoreAlign, what we do is both we are supporting individual development as innovators and then help create some platforms for people to promote their ideas. One of the things that we have also done is post, so the TED-style talk and the blog is one way to promote individual ideas. And then the other thing that we do is we offer people some one-on-one coaching with me after the fellowship in terms of where people want to take their projects and are there connections that CoreAlign can help make happen. So much of it depends very much on like where people are at in the phase, where their project is in development. So CoreAlign tries to be as responsive as possible and supportive. And so I think some projects are going to live on beyond the fellowship, like Elizabeth and I suspect Indra's project. And some people, basically, they work on the project for 6 months and either they change their mind or decide that this is not something that they want to pursue. And so what they leave the fellowship with is a whole set of skills and language and shared experience in the network, but that the project idea itself might not blossom into something bigger. And I hope that answers that question. It doesn't look like there are any other questions, so feel free to reach out to any of the fellows with questions, and certainly CoreAlign and Sarah, who has been doing a great job of tracking all the chats, is also available to answer any specific questions about the application process. So it looks like Nicole is she's just saying thank you. So, all right, on that note, thank you both Elizabeth and Indra, and I'll be seeing you guys in a couple of months. And thank you all for being on the webinar, and feel free to make sure that you get your questions asked, and thank you all very much. So thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, all.